Hi, I'm Kevin Van Leer. Welcome back. Today I want to talk about something that is a pretty deep topic and a big one for most people dealing with divorce, and that's grief. In particular, I want to talk about the different types of grief because there are really, there's two levels of it, and sometimes it's really difficult for people to know where they are in that process. Now, I want to be clear. I am not a licensed therapist. But I'm going to come from my own experience as well as people who I've seen go through our program and others to help you get a perspective on what it is and kind of where you are in the process. So the first thing is that there's something called grief, and then there's something called complicated grief. And they can be very similar in a lot of ways. And I'm going to explain some of the key differences. I don't want you to use this as a way to diagnose what you have, but to help you kind of get perspective on maybe where you are in the process, as well as maybe if it's something you need to seek professional help about. So the first thing is that they both look the same, especially what I see is in the beginning of divorce. A lot of people have just really are overcome by the idea of the marriage ending. So one of those things that is an indicator of grief is just intense sorrow, pain, rumination over, thinking about the loss of your partner or the divorce, the marriage, the relationship, that kind of thing. That's very, very common. Another one is focusing on really only the divorce, the loss of the person you loved, all of those things. And not really having anything else. Another one is extreme focus on the things that remind you about your loved one, the person you cared about. Things like being triggered by, seeing a picture on the wall or a stain on the floor, or it could be any little thing, but you may find yourself focusing on them or excessively trying to avoid them. So staying away from home or anything like that. Another one is just the intense and persistent longing for them, hoping that they'll come back, those kinds of things. Just accepting the fact that the marriage is over. So denial, that's a really big one. Another one is numbness or detachment. So you may just feel like in order to deal with this intense pain, you just shut off or shut down. And so you're just going through the motions trying to survive. Another one is you might be really bitter about what happened, angry and resentful, those kinds of things. People typically dealing with grief from divorce feel like life has no meaning without this other person. There's no purpose. They gave everything to this, that kind of thing. People may say, in some cases, they might not feel like they can trust anybody ever again as a way of protecting themselves. Another one is just, unable to enjoy your life or think back on positive things that have happened in your life. Now we get into, those are all very typical of both people dealing with grief, regular grief, and complicated grief. Now the difference is that where they say that the distinction starts to really show up is if you're dealing with those types of intense symptoms for a year or more. Now, I don't see that as, I would say it's actually sooner than that as well, because a lot of people, the first few months might be really intense of dealing with it. There might be a lot there, but if you're unable to function in your life without that other person, you may be dealing with complicated grief. Some other things that tend to point towards complicated grief as well is that you have trouble carrying out normal routines, like you just can't function. You isolate yourself from others and withdraw from social activities. I see that one as being very common with most people, partly because divorce is a shame-based situation in life. People dealing with divorce, it feels humiliating. They feel like a failure. They feel like those things. So a lot of times feeling like they want to just isolate and not talk to anybody is normal. But if you have no one that you want to talk to, if you really isolate, if you don't want to get out of bed for weeks on end, that's where things start to happen. Another one is just depression, deep sadness, maybe some guilt, or just self-doubt or self-blame. And I shouldn't say some, but a lot. Another one is believing that you did something wrong, or you could have done something, prevented it from happening in some way. Sometimes people consider suicide because of this. Now, again, a lot of these things can be very normal in divorce, and they come and go in waves. But where it really gets to be what I would call complicated grief, and where you really need to seek a therapist or trauma specialist quickly, is if these kinds of things persist at the same level day in and day out for a long, long time. There is no right or wrong about this, but that is the kind of thing that happens for people that are in complicated grief. So one other thing then that I wanted to talk about quickly is models for grief. So there's all these different models for how do you grieve, how do you do this, how do you move through that. And I've talked about some things about grief in other episodes, but I wanted to just share quickly that what I see for grief is that it is a thing that if you don't deal with it, if you don't process it, it does stick around. And in my own experience, what happened was I really basically tried to contain it for 8 months. And it wasn't until I did this program that I finally was able to really release it. And so think of it like, an emotion that sits inside a balloon. And until you really bust the balloon open, it's going to sit there inside of you. So a lot of people will deal with grief by slowly letting it out. And I certainly did. And I didn't feel like it was slowly. I mean, there would be times where I would just completely fall apart and cry unbelievably to the point where my abs hurt. And it might be for an hour, it might be for 2, but it really was something where it came in waves and then it went away, and I was able to deal with life. It wasn't easy. That grief was always there, kind of hidden behind the blinds, but it certainly was something I got to a point after a few months of being able to function. So if you feel like you are in a place where you are in extreme grief, you may want to seek a therapist. Our program definitely deals with grief. It deals with it and teach you how to process it in healthy ways, understand what it is. But if it's so debilitating that you are unable to get out of bed for months at a time, then we are not a good fit for you. Now, we can help deal with it. We've had people that have gone to see a mental health professional, and then they also are able to do our program. That is an option. But I would not suggest that, if it's really, really severe, that the first place to go is to seek a mental health professional first. So I hope that was helpful to think about this grief and where you are in the process. So anyway, that's it for today. Take care. I wish you well. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out or leave a comment below. Also, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell to get more notifications about when the next videos are coming out. Thanks so much. Have a great day.